Hello everyone, welcome back. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the latest measures, the latest round of cooling measures that were introduced by the government. And this can be roughly broken down into four main measures, right? Number one, HDB loan to value ratio, LTV, has been reduced from 90 to 85%. Number two, your TDSR, total debt servicing ratio, has been reduced from 60 to 55%. Number three, developers' additional buyer's stamp duty raised from 30 to 40%. Number four, new BTO and government land sales are increased by 40%. We'll be going through all four of these measures, all four categories, and how it's going to affect the real estate prices and the demand moving forward. Let's take things one by one. So first and foremost, number one, LTV ratio reduced for HDBs from 90 to 85%. Okay, so this is something that you guys need to understand. The most importantly, most effective way to control prices is through the LTV ratio, other than something very straightforward like a hard cap on prices. So the reduction from 90 to 85% may not seem like much, but this additional 5% means that you no longer are able to service it using a loan, and you have to use either your cash or your CPF. For a typical resale flat that's about $500,000, this 5% is easily $25,000 extra you need in your CPF before the current measures kick in. If you're looking at one of the more popular areas, something that's a little newer, prime area, it's let's say a $750,000 house, it's almost $40,000 difference. That is a lot of difference. This is going to really affect a lot of the lower income families, especially moving forward, because they are usually the ones who are unable to make up for the difference with their own cash. They really do need to squeeze every ounce out of the CPF, every ounce out of their loan moving forward. Alright, so the intended purpose is to really target the resale sector of the HDB markets and not really the BTO. BTO units from HDB usually comes at a much bigger discount, much cheaper. They are typically the cheapest properties you can buy in the market right now, since resale is usually a bit of a premium, a bit higher. Why did the government do this? Right? They are doing this because they really want to control the resale HDB sector. They want it to be less of a lottery. They don't want people to make as much money. And in particular, we will look at number four, measure number four, which is the increase of BTO units and increase of GLS. And if you ask me, moving forward, I think prices will retrace a little. We'll see a little movement backwards, because a lot of the lower income families or the younger families will see that this is going to be a factor that affects their affordability for prices. If we start to see a big retracement, prices dropping 20%, 30%, that will mean that our market is really overheated right now. That this past few months has really been a massive premium, massive overheating. People are massively euphoric, people are paying too much for prices. Then that's why a small measure will kick in a big price decrease. If not, I expect usually it should be a pretty small decrease, but a decrease nonetheless. Alright, cooling measure number two, we'll look at the TDSR, total debt servicing ratio, being dropped from 60 to 55%. So worth noting, 60 to 55% total debt servicing ratio affects only people who are taking loans to service their properties. Now, since this is TDSR, what we're going to be looking at is the private market. And this 5% difference is different from the LTV, because not only is it a different ratio, but you're looking at a different market altogether. So I understand, most Singaporeans, for us, will be looking at taking up a loan for our properties. It's only the right thing to do. We don't have like $1 million, $2 billion just lying around to invest in a real estate. But foreigners and some of the more affluent Singaporeans actually are able to, some of them do actually purchase using full cash, using full CPF. They don't actually use much loans. one emerging market as well as people who are buying things under trust. If a parent wants to buy something for their kids, pay in full, they are not using any loan, they buy under trust, this does not affect them at all. So prices are, of course with the TDSR dropping, it means that the amount of loan that they're able to take as well decreases, but the impact is going to be considerably lesser than the HDB measures. So prices are going to retrace a little, but we should not see as big of a retracement as the HDB market, because there is still an underlying lack of supply in the market. Prices are still going to go up within the next 2 to 3 years, even though the affordability for people is going to be impacted slightly. People are going to be able to take lesser loan, but there will still be enough demand and lack of supply that prices, based on pure economics, is going to eventually move up. Third factor we are going to look at is the new developers ABSD being increased from 30 to 40%. So right now, if developers are unable to sell their project units within 5 years, they are liable to pay ABSD on their unsold units at a 30% rate. Let's imagine for a second you are paying an extra 30% for your properties. That's a lot of difference. And moving forward, it's not going to be 30%, it's going to be 40%. So because of this, developers are going to adjust their risk appetite moving forward, because the potential downside of being unable to sell their units becomes so much higher, right? We are very familiar with the en bloc cycle, projects are going for en bloc, new condos are going for en bloc. But one thing to note is that moving forward, en bloc is going to be slightly hit, it's going to be slightly impacted, because developers are going to adjust their risk appetite. And in particular, the most dangerous kind of developments that you are going to look at are your large, mega, huge developments, more than 1,000 units. I would expect moving forward, smaller projects, 500 unit, 600 unit projects are not going to be hit as hard. The developers will still be looking to get those projects because they are able to sell the projects out relatively easily. But the mega projects, or your big projects, will have a bigger challenge, because usually those projects tend not to sell 100%. That means the developers have to absorb the 40% ABSD moving forward, right? En bloc projects as well, if you are currently staying in a piece of land or staying in any condo project that is a very big development, huge land size, 20,000 square feet and above, you are going to consider, you might think to yourself like, oh, this is a prime area for en bloc. You may think the place to en bloc, but developers may not be as keen because they are concerned about not being able to sell their project out, right? Last but not least, another important factor to look at is the increase of the government land sale and BTO supply. So it's been said that they are increasing government land sale supply by 40% next year, along with more HDB units being increased. So for new developers in the market, the main methods they can use to get additional land is, number one, either through a government land sale, which is land sold by the government themselves, or number two, through en bloc, right? Selective en bloc scheme. Now, the intended effect for the increase in the en bloc units is to create less of a price inflation, because en bloc projects, en bloc land tends to be the one that's going to cost a bit more. There's also an increase in HDB units, more BTO projects being released. The main reason here the government is doing this is because they do not want as many Singaporeans to start looking in the resale market and drive the prices up. That's why they're releasing more supply in the BTO markets to cope with this. Now, one downside of it is to always look at is that BTO is not built yet. BTO are all under construction. You're going to have to wait for the new BTO units to come up. And it's going to be very telling in the next few months, because we're going to see how most Singaporean families are reacting. Are they willing to start adjusting their demand and look at HDB BTO units instead, when it's going to be cheaper? Or are they just going to go back and like, oh, hey, damn it, I'm not going to wait. I'm just going to go into the resale market. I'm going to look at resale properties instead. If that continues to be the trend, we're going to continue seeing the resale prices being as high as it is, continue to be high. If people start to adjust their demand towards BTO projects, then your resale prices, your HDB resale prices should come down a little more. Government land supply increase, right? If you are looking to buy any old condo projects for the sole purpose of gambling on the en bloc potential, be very careful, because the next few years will be very telling, as we will start to see if the en bloc market starts to die out, if we start to see the end of the en bloc era, right? If that starts to be the case, more developers are going for government land sale instead. You will start to see more projects reaching their 99-year deadline, getting older before they're getting bought up. This will be something to consider. It will affect your profitability. Do be very careful of it as well. And ties in one additional smaller factor that's going to affect our prices moving forward is the increase in additional buyer stamp duty for foreigners. So for Singapore PRs and Singapore citizens that are buying their first private property, there is no increase in your stamp duty. For foreigners, however, there's an increase in stamp duties. So, I mean, right now it seems like a very odd timing to have this in place, but with borders reopening soon, it seems like it's on the horizon. This is more of a preventive, preemptive measure rather, to make sure that our prices don't balloon like Hong Kong, like cities like Hong Kong, where a lot of the properties are actually being bought by foreigners. So in a way, you can consider like this is what the government is trying to do. They're trying to preemptively, control the housing market in Singapore, because with limited land, it's very, very easy for our prices to reach Hong Kong levels or even New York levels, right? So this concludes the end of my analysis. I hope the video has been helpful to share about what these latest cooling measures mean, how they affect us moving forward. Do let me know if you have found the information helpful, and if there's anything you want to add on, break down as well. All the best.